there seems to be a concentration of power and wealth in fewer and fewer companies, right? We talk of the big companies like Amazon, Microsoft, so on like that, in the tech space. Artificial intelligence, what is its impacts? There's a poor track record on stimulating entrepreneurship and supporting small business. Everybody wants to support small business. Everybody believes that entrepreneurship is the way forward, but somehow it's not happening. Why? I mean, everybody is like waiting for somebody to do something for them. So how do we change that? There's the African demographic trends of the increase, and those trends also give us some pause for concern. Okay, but there is an opportunity as well. In order to realize that opportunity, there's very important paradigm shifts that are needed if we want regional trade and integration. We have to strengthen local economies. Local economies, that sounds kind of obvious, right? We need to strengthen local economies. Because if you don't have something to offer, why would someone want to trade with you? You have nothing to offer. And now there's a potential of all the power being aggregated in fewer and fewer companies. So you have less and less things to offer. We have to change that on its head. There's less local economic destabilization and improved social cohesion if we're able to do this. You see, if you want to buy a loaf of bread from another country, yeah, I mean, if you've got no connection with somebody, you do that. But if you know this person, your neighbor over here is making bread, right? And you care about this person, you'd rather even pay premium to buy bread from there, because if he's poor and his children are poor, it's still going to sit up on you, and there'll be all kinds of other social effects on you. So the thing is, how do we bring all of these things together and leverage it? That's more important. You have to mutually and beneficially exploit this intra-African continental free trade area opportunities. And now, when we are talking even in the financial space, right? You know, financial space is a tech space. Even the very basics of your money is actually tech. We are talking digital currencies here. These digital currencies also offer the opportunity where you can create local economies with that currency enabling and incentivizing local trade. Right now, globalization will still be there. Big companies will still be there. And they will exist and continue to exist, and there's nothing wrong with it. And, but I'm focusing on the more marginalized. And there is an opportunity to tremendously increase the economy through them. For this, we need new entrepreneurship models. We look at jobs versus work opportunities. We have to prioritize work opportunities. So you yourself will be an independent contractor, and maybe a small business that you're creating. Your whole business setup, what you're going to deliver, may consist of various independent contractors. We have to convert centralized utility services or large business services to decentralized models, because in that, there's an opportunity to enable small entrepreneurs to also offer services like electricity, which is very complex. A grid is a very complex thing. So the third thing that we need to do is we need to accelerate economic activity at the local level. There's a concept called contagious entrepreneurship. You know, sometimes you come into an environment, or you visit some people, and I don't know, there's just something in the air, right? You know, the way people talk, and then you think, I can also do this, right? Now, is there something in our systems that we can do through 4IR technology that will enable this contagious nature? People used to joke, you know, I mean, somebody in your neighborhood sets up a coffee shop, and you think, I can do that. And then you set up a coffee shop. Where? On the same street. And then your friend also, now there's like 15 coffee shops on the same street, right? That's not really entrepreneurship, because people don't have imagination. So you have to be able to excite them and get them involved into this possibility thinking with the systems that will enable them. That's what we need to do. Now, the good news is that with 4IR technologies in the platform economy, we could strategically shift this paradigm. Strategically shift means that there needs to be a conscious effort by all parties involved. And there are certain key enabling technologies like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, extended reality, distributed ledger technology, cloud, front-end systems, etc., for these new business models. So if we look at complex business systems, right, the problem is it's complex. Can you imagine your grandmother trying to start a business with this kind of like tech? It's going to be difficult, right? So there needs to be almost like a package. You know the franchise model, like Nando's, right? They give you all of the systems that's necessary. There's some training. There's ways how to do it. There's people that you can talk to. But at the end of the day, you actually run the business, right? And you'll get a lot of training on the job. Is there something with tech that we can create these kind of platforms that will enable that? I might be running out of time. So I want to talk about Furby, which is a strategic platform for contagious entrepreneurship. The vision is to enable geographically local economic concentrations in Africa using networked business structures of small businesses and independent contractors with sharing and servitization business models, accessing just-in-time micro-certified skills, blending emerging 4-hour technology with humans accessibly in a standard way, right? So that's kind of like a goal. It's kind of like a vision. So Furby stands for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Business in a Box, Next Generation Enablement. Just call it Furby, right? I'm not going to go into what else it is, but I can see that the bottom of the screen is hidden by some chairs. But what Furby essentially is that there is a digital platform, and that platform extends into what we call the world of engagement. So the world of engagement, can you imagine a future where almost everybody is represented by avatars? If you want, you know, like the entire government of South Africa is represented by an avatar. These avatars can interact with each other, but behind these avatars, there's a lot of like conversational intelligence and artificial intelligence that processes various types of transactions. So like, for example, supposing you've got someone house sitting for you, and you've gone off on holiday somewhere, and one day they wake up and there's no water. What do? Well, they're house sitting, so where's the municipality? Who do I report this to? Where's the problem? So in the future, you could perhaps just come up to, on this engagement platform, go to the avatar that's called government. It might look like a person, right? There's the one person, you say, you know, I don't have water, right? As soon as you make a statement like that, you may even approach into a room where this avatar is, you declare, I don't have water. And then from behind, in terms of the intelligence, it will look at the connection that you're making. You know, in South Africa, people are polite. We like to greet, right? Here's a person, they didn't even greet. They just said, I don't have water, right? So immediately there's some sentiment analysis over there that says, this person is very irritated. We'd better not irritate them further by saying, what do you mean? Rainwater, borehole water, you know, bottled water? What water are you talking about? You don't have water. Right? And so it can immediately say with high probability you're most likely talking about tap water. And then you confirm, are you talking about tap water? Yes. So you see this is a conversational platform, right? You see it changes the game. As soon as you confirm where this person's residence is, and then you find, but this is not your house. And he says, no, I'm house sitting. Okay, there's a good reason for it. And then you can immediately go into problem-solving mode simultaneously. You don't have to wait and wait and wait and wait, right? So this kind of engagement platform is very, very important to get more entrepreneurs on board. And the last thing is the kind of stuff that you need in the small businesses itself. You know, this package that you get to help you with your business. Okay, now in terms of, because there's a focus on regional economies and local economies, these local economies can be put together into a hierarchy. Let me just go back into some kind of a hierarchy at each level. So in your neighborhood, you could have an entire Furby platform, and these Furby platforms are interconnected at a national level. So that means it's almost a standardized approach to building all kinds of services. Okay, let me look at this vision through the lens of an example. This is enabling contagious entrepreneurship and new service delivery models. About a decade ago, in India, there was very poor broadband connectivity. Very, very poor. Now, if you go there, broadband is very cheap. You can be in in a very remote rural area there. You'll have fiber optic connectivity to your place, 1,000 TV channels. They'll offer you internet at a very small price. Your telephone calls, they'll even give you a telephone instrument if you want. It's free, right? It's all sort of like piggybacking on this basic infrastructure. But the question is, how was this infrastructure rolled out? It was not your big telcos rolling it out. No, the telcos created these kind of like franchise operations where you, not knowing much about telecommunications, complicated switches and gadgets and things like that, you could say, I want to sign up on this. Then I'd come up to you, like let's say I wanted to do this business. I would get a certain kind of package. Just myself and one other person, 2 people, can set up this business. And they will be rolling fiber over trees, over power lines, this way, that way, over fields, into your premises. It may not look pretty, but one person is there getting the business, and he's got all the support infrastructure. Another person is getting some training just in time, and they might be splicing cable, extending cable, and so on like that. It creates opportunities for other people in that economy. If you want to have these big fiber rolls delivered to you, there's somebody there with either a bicycle, a small TUT-TV, which is a 3-wheeler pickup kind of stuff, that you will engage that will bring in these things to you. So this is what's called a network business model. So how can this be improved through Furby? Through digital engagement platforms, they become aware of an opportunity. So the thing is that there are a lot of people who leave a certain area, but they want to plow back to the area. But maybe you live in a city somewhere. How do you plow back into this area? If you're connected to this area through an engagement platform, you are able to tell people that, hey, there's this opportunity, let me help you. It's not just throwing money into something. You can throw your money into a very directed spot. So you're able to actually collect that kind of investments that's there. Even governments, when they want to invest, you invest in a small business, but you don't know what this business is up to, right? So getting these kind of systems into place actually has a great benefit. So there could be advisors that pitch in with the formulation of the business idea. Some of this could be AI, some of this could be human. As the idea quickly evolves, potential investors and charities are engaged. Suppliers, resources, skills are engaged dynamically from other small businesses to form a network business structure. Most of the infrastructure and equipment is servitized. Well, servitized means that, we don't sell you a phone. We sell you the service of the phone. You don't own the phone. You can use the phone. We don't sell you tires for your car. You don't want to own tires because afterwards when the tires are kind of like worn out, what do you do with it? You make it into swings. You make it into potted plants or something, right? We'll sell you 40,000 kilometers. That's a servitization operation. That can be enabled by these kind of like businesses. In the course of setup, operations, opportunities for other businesses emerge. So this is the contagion nature of this business. So we can reduce the cost, knowledge, expertise, and everything that is needed through these so-called Furby concepts, and components once we've properly defined as a society what it should be. So that's the next step. I think let me stop over there. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Isaacs. Can we do the right thing? And as we're doing the right thing, can I call up the Senior Director at IFO, Umisethire Somhlomi, who will be facilitating a panel discussion. Mr. Isaacs is already here. Can I also call Mr. Ofense Madisha, who's the Head of Public Policy for South Africa at Uber, and Mr. Talifani Banks, businessman and group CEO analytics. Can you please give them a round of applause? Like a proper round of applause, a proper round of applause, a proper round of applause. They can't hear you. They cannot hear you. Come on now.
How are you doing? Thank you so much. Let me see. Yeah, it's on.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah, it's actually on.
Yeah, it's Is my mic on, or my voice is just loud? Okay, good afternoon. We are a men's choir that's sitting between you and lunch.
Yes.
And, but I'm hoping that we will have highly energized discussions. And unfortunately, the other panelist had to leave. And he was very critical because he is a startup who has built a platform. And it would have been good because then people can identify. Because if offense is going to talk, then you'll say Uber has a lot of money. But I'm hoping that we will get good discussion. So when I was still sitting, I remember somebody said, I think the Havals were coming very strong. They said, you know, Havals are good cars until you have to buy the parts from Temu. So, so when we were conceptualizing the topics for the dialogue, the golden thread was about collaboration to accelerate Africa's inclusive economic growth. And in looking into the spirit of the free trade agreement, one of the things is about interregional trade. And interregional trade over the years has been dominated by multinational companies. And for the free trade agreement to be successful, we do need to have working systems. We do need to innovate and so that we can thrive. And the issue around the platform economy, Ndatemadisha, I will start with you. I would want you to break it down a bit from the perspective of the opportunities that are created by that platform.
That's an interesting question, and good afternoon, everyone. Very exciting conversation. Excellent presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. So we have about 192 platforms operating in Africa. And these span across a number of different sectors, whether it's hospitality, whether it is cloud work, whether it is delivery, mobility. In fact, the mobility and delivery sector represents the smallest proportion of this 192 across the continent. Fundamentally, what they do is they enable a multi-sided marketplace, as you've already presented, where you have a consumer like you and me who makes a request or is using the platform as an end user, and then they have the operator, so the business customer, who is basically using the technology to operate their business, if not accelerate what they're currently doing. The technology platform itself, its core business is to link these two markets. So that's just a simple model. Where you have more complex models, like in the delivery space, you'll have, for instance, merchants or restaurants or retailers or even a grocery chain tied into this technology platform. So essentially what it does is it enables you as a consumer, as a user, to access something called a consumer surplus, a degree of welfare, and then it enables the business customers to access the market, so a market that they previously never had access to. You can order malamhodu from Alex when you're sitting in Sandton, right? And this is crucial just from a local cuisine perspective. The tech, however, has now gone beyond this type of level, where you're seeing other partnerships within the value chain, so vertical and horizontal integration, where the technology platforms are getting into structural agreements with the business customers. And what that does is that it takes a small business that has 10 cars operating on a platform, and it says, you are capable of securing additional finance to enable another 100, right, to operate through this. Same thing applies with the hospitality sector, the cloud computing sector, and so forth. It's an extremely interesting space for scalability, but then it's also a space that is quite volatile, new, and very, very, very surprising.
John, you spoke about Furby, and because I want us to take the discussion into, the whole discussion around regional integration. And I was judging some of the businesses in the African Business Heroes, and there was a lot of proposals around platforms. However, my problem about it was
their perspective and the things that they need for their business. But when you're looking at it like from a Furby perspective, for example, there needs to be a platform that will basically get all the citizens of a country together. That might be centralized some way, centralized, distributed, but still kind of like centralized, right? So the structure of these kind of like platforms and the trading mechanisms, like there's currency exchanges and so on like this. So when we looked at Furby in terms of like core tech for AI, IoT, et cetera, all types of enablement, tech enablement. But there was a very important perspective there on that we call the world of engagement. There's particular technologies and facilities that is needed for this engagement. So if we're looking for regional trade, right? Why would, let's say, for example, you need copper to make an artifact or for some wiring or something in your present locality. We would like to emphasize that you find these resources locally, right? Your neighbor, your cousin somewhere, so on like this, right? But the thing is, we don't have copper. So now that creates an opportunity somewhere. So there's a marketplace mechanism that needs to be created. There'll actually be multiple marketplaces, a hierarchy of multiple of marketplaces, from your locals to your provincials, to your states, to your multi-states, to your region, to your multi-region, etc. That will facilitate, the kind of transactions. So if you want to trade with someone, you need copper. The first thing that you need to know is, where can I get copper at a good price, right? Where can I get copper at a good price that the copper will be delivered to me without too much hassles, right? Hence transport. How does it get to me, right? The design of those platforms and engagements probably is going to be a little bit of an organic conversation, but it needs to start from, that's the starting point, it needs to start from a strategic level. This is how we see the future, and we commit to something like this. If you leave it to very, very small players to come around to it, it will not organically coalesce into this key enablement platforms. So someone has to design those platforms to enable that concept. Once you can show that concept, we believe the contagion effect will then take over. And I can give some examples of complex kind of like businesses that could be brought down to a 2-person, 3-person kind of business opportunity as well in your local that will have regional implications.
Correct. Before I go to the audience, yesterday in talking about the African future, in talking about the Africa that we want to see, and also from the perspective of trading with one another, and without having to, let's say that I want stuff from Small Street, and I live in Weru.
Yes.
Somewhere,
yeah.
And then instead of riding a bus for 2 days and coming back,
yes.
Do you actually believe that in our lifetime we will have an African Temu that would make the regional trade easier?
Yes. So I think maybe step back. What is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement for? Fundamentally, it is intended to pull about 30 million people out of extreme poverty. That's $5.50 a day. Then it is intended to benefit, right, about 68 million people on our continent. When you look at South Africa today, we have an unemployment rate of about 35, 36%, and we have a gross domestic product that is unbelievable. We're among the first or second, depending on which year you're looking, from a gross domestic product perspective on our continent. If you look at a country like Kenya, a population of maybe 52, 53 million people, unemployment of 5.5%. My mic seems to be stuttering. But unemployment rate of about 5.5%, and the GDP of Gauteng. How do you have an economy with the GDP of Gauteng and the population of South Africa functioning efficiently? M-Pesa. This is how they're moving money locally. Extremely affordable transport. This is how transport poverty is alleviated. Innovative and diverse businesses. This is where you have Zando and others, right? Born, bred, built in Nairobi, running efficiently, expanding across the continent, right? You see this. It's a simple example. There are many examples of this nature where you're looking at innovation from the continent that is scalable and that multinationals can integrate with. Glovo, for example, uses M-Pesa to enable trade within the communities, right? That's the currency, right? And the key here is that we need to almost decide what we're looking for as a continent. If we want to enable trade, government strategy will focus on macro, massive trade, logistics, efficiencies. If we're looking at creating earning opportunities, communities, people, youth are going to focus on finding ways to leverage Betway, TikTok, and e-hailing to make money, right? And we almost need to balance these two interests out. And the scalability is possible.
I would like to say that maybe we don't want the next Amazon, next Temu. We want an aggregation of these small businesses that virtually they're aggregated on a platform, so they may look like an Amazon, right? But these are these small players. And the thing is that, you know, like if you're on YouTube or something like that, there are certain algorithms there that show you what next you could be interested in. And they rate certain things in a certain way, right? So things like reputation, trust, and so on, you know, in terms of the number of interactions that's there, you can build that through the kinds of like 4IR technology that is available now. So it's, this is why I use the term paradigm shift, right? Normally you want to control everything because this is really important for your business. You can't wait for someone to deliver something and they're not delivering. You want to jump on someone and get it done there. But if you have a networked business of all of these delivery, transport operators and so on like this, maybe someone can transport something from one point to another point, transfer it to someone else so that it comes into the local economy. This is the kind of thing that we'd want to promote with the kind of strategic platforms that are developed. So that's my view.
So the word I'm getting is aggregation. Now, we're going to throw this to the audience. So we're going to take some few questions so that we can go to lunch quickly, but I don't say don't ask questions. Yeah.
Not really.
No. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiamo. I'm a student at Tshwane University of Technology. My question is directed to Mr. Josh. Is it Josh?
John.
John, yes, yeah. Mr. John. You spoke about the ability of decentralizing some of our government operations, allowing small businesses or SMMEs or whatever to get a piece of the pie to actually make profits and move within business. So my question, or it's a critique rather, is the difficulty of that actually being realized when you look at in terms of, like you said, the energy sector. Companies that can leverage these technologies to actually provide business in those areas are companies that have backing of old money. For instance, what's happening with this whole diversification of ESCOM and people like Rupert who have the financial muscle to actually build solar farms and wind farms to actually go into the space and provide electricity as a private entity. When you look at it in contrast to some of the people in this building, us as students who are coming from universities who don't have that backing to actually get these resources to build these infrastructures and to compete with these major companies. So this decentralization, what is your advice and how does it actually take effect? How do we actually get the money, get the resources to actually implement these things?
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much for that question. Actually, that's a very good question. So you picked up the example and the difficulty with electricity systems. You need huge capital investment, right? And if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have that kind of capital investment. Okay. So we need to change the paradigm a little bit. Maybe those big investors can find another channel for which this investment can be made as well. Now, despite all this big money, right, and huge companies, you know, like ESCOM and so on like that, in the various countries in Africa, there's 600 million people who are not going to be connected to the grid. So what's the problem? Do they not see an opportunity, right? So the problem is that sometimes with the abundance of this infrastructure that you have an abundance of problems leading to load shedding, aging infrastructure, so on like this. So if there's a community that wants to be connected to the grid, you have to wait for somebody, some company like an ESCOM or a ZESCO or something to make you a priority. Until they do so, you are not going to have electricity, right? Now, the original model for the delivery of electricity is what they call the broadcast model of electricity. So you've got a power station in Koeberg, for example, in South Africa, and it delivers power through transmission lines all the way up to Gauteng, right? There's losses also in this process. So in the energy sector or electricity sector, there's a concept of a microgrid. So a microgrid is a grid that has that is basically self-contained. It can work in island mode, or it can connect to another grid that connects it. So let's look at electricity supply delivery in terms of microgrids. By the way, designing a grid or redesigning a grid based around microgrids is a more resilient approach. Now, if you take a microgrid is very complex. Electricity is a very complex thing. Now, we want people, ordinary people, to be able to roll out a microgrid. How do we do that? So we create the kind of like technology that will allow a significant portion of automation. So for example, if you look at your big utility companies, a large portion of their workforce is involved in things like, oh, there's a fault, go and check. So you have to go over mountain, over desert to go look what's happening here. Someone's stealing the tower, right? This community needs to be connected. So maybe 70% of your workforce will be those kind of people. Can you find some way that these kind of like inspections automation is automated? You can do that with drone technology. You can create automated inspection platforms and so on. So the entrepreneur is given a toolkit. Then there's certain enabling technology that needs to be made. That enabling technology has to do with controllers. So you've got a grid controller that will negotiate with each house, how much power do you need, and it'll set a price. That price can be a local currency. So if we solve that tech basis to enable this, then you can create a business model around it. You said the capital investment. So let's say this entrepreneur's business model is to deliver electricity. That business model does not require him to own transformers, to own lines, to own pylons, and so on. Other people can say, I am going to invest, so there's small investment. I'm going to invest in a pylon over here. And for this one, I'm going to get a little bit of the rent of a transaction, right? So you can create a fee structure that enables this kind of operation. If you want energy, there's solar panels, there's wind, etc. There's distributed energy resources. You don't have to own these resources. Somebody else can come and say, I'll put in a battery for storage. I'm going to charge. And the key to this thing is dynamic pricing. So what I'm trying to say is, if you look at the electricity grid, it is, especially like the North American electricity grid, it is said to be the most complex machine created by man. We are able to take that level of complexity and break it down into smaller units that entrepreneurs can run with. And you can have these grids at multiple levels, and you can tie in investment into micro infrastructures, or portions of the infrastructure that they will take rent out of. Does that answer your question?
No. We can have conversation over lunch. Do we have another question? If not, I think we. Oh.
Hi everyone, I'm Motlati from Mindworks. I have a question for Mr. John. You mentioned earlier about the new business models. So I have a question. Do you guys invest in universities so that they implement these new business models so that the graduates will be able to implement them at the workplace? Like, to help them prepare for the new workplace? Because as a talent acquisition specialist, we have experienced like 80% of the graduates who are not aware. Like, most of them are not aware that they have to implement these new business models at the workplace.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Good day, everyone. My name is Tozamile Fuchani. I'm from the Val company called SMMeasy. My question is directed at Mr. John Isaac. Actually, I think I've got 3 questions. Take one. Okay, yeah. I want to understand the concept around dynamic pricing.
We're advancing in age, so we might not remember 3 questions.
So around dynamic pricing, in terms of, because the laws of economics, it's demand and supply.
Yes.
Where the higher the demand, the higher the price. But like now, if you look at this open source and collaboration model, it's actually the opposite now, right? Whereby now, the higher the demand, the price is going down. So now, also now being in Africa, where now we've got so much diverse cultural differences, country and regionally, and then, because when you check your overseas partners, when they price, they take the entire globe and then aggregate it to that element, and it becomes cheaper. So now for a South African person, in terms of dynamic pricing, is this incorporated to cater for that?
Okay.
I think before John answers, I would, both of you, I would like you to answer those 2 questions.
Yes.
But also then to give your closing remarks, because there are 2 threads that I have read out of the conversation. One is the platform economy as an aggregator. And then there was also then a challenge which was mentioned, the issue around the funding of this innovation, which is a problem. So I would like you 2 gentlemen to, in a very short space of time, to try and answer those questions and give your closing remarks.
Okay, I think the most important thing for the students in the room today is to take advantage of the opportunities that exist right now. For example, if you're studying business, business tech or what have you, if you are not in the habit of constantly writing about whatever it is that you're studying for public consumption or communicating it consistently, you're missing out on an important skill that will help you sell the next product. The idea around access to funding and enabling that, I think the most important element here is that you don't have to chase a microgrid. You can make solar panels and batteries available for rental at a higher price point so that you can get your return on investment. You can do that tomorrow if you want to. The opportunities are there. You will need a website. You can do that for free on Wix, right? So the landscape is dynamic, it's open, and the opportunities are there. It's a matter of refining and developing the competencies that currently exist in the higher education system today.
Thank you. All right, thanks. So in response to the first question, you see, the thing is that there's certain technology work that needs to be done in terms of refining this Furby concept and making that possible. If this thing is possible, right, it's not just students at TUT or any university that is going to benefit of this. It is anybody who is there in the community at whatever age that they are. As long as they can talk and they can think, they can participate in this economy. And you do not need to have a wealth of experience and knowledge in order to start that. So in regard to the earlier question on microgrids and the complexity of the capital investment or the amount and the issues related to that, there is this thing of just-in-time training. There's different ways of training. In a virtual world, you can see the entire situation, and you can have different types of simulators that you're operating your business on, so that you're learning while you're doing the business. Remember, there's a toolkit that's given to you. Anybody can do this, right? Are we there today? Perhaps not yet in terms of the Furby concept, but as my colleague here said, there are certain things that you can start out with immediately. So the important things is the local currencies, the local economy, and the servitization and the services concept, and the fact that you can break down a problem into small business problems that entrepreneurs can tackle to begin with as they build up their business. So I hope I've answered that question. So there is something there for you. Now, in terms of dynamic pricing, you see, there is open source you had mentioned, right? There's global economies of scale and so on. If you want to buy tomatoes, the fact that there is open source, does that affect the price of your tomato? This is a tangible good, right? This depends upon supply and demand in your local area. There might be a lot of tomatoes in Mozambique, but if they're not here, if someone seizes on that business opportunity to get tomatoes quickly to you over here, they're going to charge you a premium and you will pay for it because you want the tomato, right? Now, in the same way, if we're looking at, say, even grid dynamic pricing and so on like this, it's not just electricity. There's a lot of things that can be dynamically priced. If you're in a dynamic pricing regime, it might be difficult sometimes. Should I switch on the kettle? Oh, let me check the price. No, let me wait. You know, you will have agentic technology that is working on your behalf, that will be analyzing the markets and the this and that, and implement a trading strategy or an engagement strategy according to your wishes. So, for example, in a home, the home controller could say to you, look, there's a good opportunity to make money selling electricity here. Then you say, yeah, I like that idea. Then it says, however, advise me. Do you want to watch your soapy, or should I sell that energy also, right? So you can conversationally engage, and it will tell you what the implications of this is. This is what is potential. It's on the cusp of possibility, right? So dynamic pricing kind of schemes, localization is very, very important. So in terms of my closing statement, I would like to say that, you know, 4IR technology makes a lot of things possible, But in order to address or to exploit that opportunity, it cannot be business as usual. There's a paradigm that needs to change. Now, the problem with paradigms is that they don't change quickly, right? If you think along the lines of, I want a job, I need a job, someone give me a job, right? It'll take a while for you to think like, hey, you know, you can sell your services here. Here's a platform that will allow you to sell your services, whatever service it is, and you can get into this game at an early stage. So that paradigm needs to change, but we need to think strategically as a country, as a government on it.
Thank you so much. And we apologize to the MC and the people for taking their time, but it was needed.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give them a warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. No, let's give them a warm round of applause. Thank you very much to the men's choir. Your bass and lack of soprano was well received. Ladies and gentlemen, as they're taking pictures, we're now going to be breaking for lunch. Just 2 or 3 announcements. So I'm hoping that everyone filled in the feedback, ne? Everyone, okay, perfect. Remember that also there's the exhibition stands which I spoke about, that please, over lunch, please go visit. The people with the red tags, can you please meet the ushers at the lift? You'll then get a briefing from them. And then in terms of lunch, so you go out of the door here, you turn left, down the escalators and into the dining hall. So we shall be back here. So we've got a very, very special surprise. How many of you guys know of a gentleman called Mr. Billy Selikani? How many of you guys are excited by, or will be excited by seeing him? So let me tell you this. So with or without you at 2 o'clock, he's going to be on stage because he's catching a flight out. So with or without you, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying if you want to be able to see him, 2 o'clock you must be here. 2 o'clock you must be here. He's got a flight to catch, and he specifically said he'll come and join us. So we'll see you guys at 2 o'clock. Thank you.